Hello, everybody. My name is Matteo. I'm very happy to be here with you this morning, Italian time. I hope the video goes well because I'm actually staying today in a hotel because I'm in Rome, the capital, because this is like the best weekend in June because today I'm here with you and tomorrow we will be running an in-person conference in Rome with all the Italian judges. So it's like a 2 day of conferences for me. And that's great. I'm here today to talk to you about investigations. So why am I talking about investigations? I am a level 3 judge since 2010. I've also been a level 4 judge for a few days before we changed all the judge structure. And I've been charged with investigations at major international events since 2015. I actually do remember my very first investigation at a GP. I remember all the emotions and especially all the stress of running an investigation of such a big importance. And I want to use this opportunity to share some stories with you so that you may also feel the emotions, but probably less stress whenever you will be charged with such a task. I've also been part of what was called the Player Investigation Committee. That was a committee that was reading all the disqualification reports from events from all over the world, and were assessing eventually suspensions or further actions by wizards. So I've been there for also 3 years, I believe, until it was there was a Judge Academy and the committee was dismissed. So a lot of investigations, a lot of seminars about investigation. What I hope to be different today is that we will not be doing like a whole bunch of theories, but we will be mostly sharing experiences. And I will ask you as often as possible to share your thoughts or to answer my questions in the chat. I can read the chat from my phone, so I will try to be as much interactive as possible. Let's see if I can change the slide. Yes. So my first question is, as you may or may not recognize by the picture on the slide, investigation, my first thought goes to Sherlock Holmes. I'm an avid reader, and Sherlock Holmes was one of the first stories that I used to read as a kid. And whenever Sherlock Holmes was investigating, there is like one memorable quote that he always said, especially to the person that were with him during the investigation. So anybody in the chat knows what is the most famous quote by Sherlock Holmes? Let's see. Yes, John Watson was his assistant. And the most famous quote is actually elementary, my dear Watson. Is it correct? Well, like in investigation stories, this is not really correct because this was like not written by the author, Arthur Conan Doyle, but was something that was added during the television series. So it's not an original quote. And the same thing maybe applies to what we get from judges when they investigate. So when I go to a tournament and I ask a judge, okay, what do you do when you want to investigate? What is the actual answer I get like 99% of the time? So what do you do when you investigate? This is what actually I receive as an answer. So I ask like a few questions, maybe 2. And what question do you ask? I ask the right ones. So maybe this is not actually by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle as well, but it's more from judges on the floor. So the real question about investigation for me is, yes, this is great, but what are these right questions? So what should you ask the players in order to have a successful investigation? And this is what we are going to talk today. So before we start me talking and you listening, I want to go on the same page, to be on the same page. So Whenever you talk to judges and you ask what is an investigation, I'm sure that you will get a lot of different answers. And I want us to be on the same page. So I will going to share with you a few typical situations from events. And I'm going to ask you, okay, do you think you will investigate this situation? So please, as soon as I will share you this situation, they will be very simple to understand. Write in the chat, yes, if you would like to investigate this kind of situation, or no, if you would not like to investigate the situation, okay? So I'm going to read the chat and to see, the goal is not to see if you do it right or wrong, just to have an idea if these situations are worth an investigation from a judge at an event, okay? So the first situation I wanna share with you is a player coming to you and asking you, judge, where is the toilet? So please write yes if you think this needs an investigation, or no if this does not need an investigation. So if you see no's, one yes, no's are a good majority of the answer we are getting. Don't be shy, there is no right or wrong or left answer to this question. Just share what you think. No, 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 no. Depends on the player, etc. And we have some questions, very good. So let's say situation number one is mostly no. Situation number two, let's see. Situation number two, judge, can I give you the result? So this one, I believe you got like a lot of times this question during the event. Would you like to investigate this situation, or do you think there is no need for an investigation? So we start with a no. Let's see how it goes. No, 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 no. For question two, no. There will be more questions later. Yes, we will be eventually going into details in this situation. So this is your starting thought. Okay, we will deep dive later on. So no, 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 no. A lot of no. Okay. So first two questions is mostly no. Third question, yes, companion now. Yeah, I know. I'm an old judge, so ancient judge, better. So companion is a new thing that we will be living with later on. And I'm sure that we will have a lot of stories with companion in a few years. So situation number three, a player calls you and tells you, judge, we have additional time. So do you think that this question from a player or this request from a player needs an investigation? We have still no. We have a first yes, yes. Yes, a whole bunch of yes coming, yes, maybe stalling, yes, 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 yes. Okay, we have the first situation where we think we will need to investigate, and situation number four, and the last one that I want to share with you is, judge, I can't find a card. So this one is also a situation that happens quite often. Absolutely, yes, 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 yes. Let's see if yes, if vintage, yes, if pauper, no, okay. That's the good point. Yes, what card is it? Okay, so we have four situations. The first two, most judges or the entirety of judges were saying no, an investigation is not needed. The second two, most judges are telling me, yes, we need to investigate. Okay, but what do we need to do if we want to investigate? We didn't define what the investigation is. So let's start with situation number one. And let's see if we can find a definition for investigation. So the question was very simple. And usually this is like sort of the most common question you get from players, other than, can you share the oracle text of this card that I'm playing? And so it's one of the top two questions you get from an event. So suggestion, especially at large events, make sure you know where the toilets are, because you will be asked about this. And usually the answer for me would be no, but I promised you some stories from large events I was judging earlier before the pandemics. And this was actually a situation that came out a lot also at my last large event. It was GP Lyon in France, and it was in late February of 2020. And yes, it was the last GP before the GP events were canceled because of pandemics. And that was a very special GP because we heard rumors about this thing that would be possibly a very bad thing. We will still be running the event, so we wanted to make sure that the players were safe. And we posted a lot of advices on how to properly sanify yourself. We shared a lot of material at the event that you could clean your hands, for example, after every single match. And we increased the spaces between players. And so the situation was quite different from our usual GP. And we actually made a lot of announcements that you are required to clean your hands in between rounds during your event. So this question was not like the normal question, because that event was not like your normal event. And what happened actually at that event is that like 90% of the time, the player was not actually asking you, where is the toilet? Was asking you this same question, but their meaning was different. And they wanted to go to the toilet not because they were in a situation where they needed it for the usual reasons, but they were actually needing the toilet to clean their hands. And so if you told them, yes, the toilet is like 500 meters in that direction, that was not like the best answer you could give the player. You could tell the player, okay, do you need to wash your hands? Yes, so we have the cleaning solution right there. You don't need to go to the toilet for that, okay? So what can we take from this story? So about investigations, yes, I agree with you, like 99% of judges answering in the chat were telling, no, this doesn't need an investigation. And I'm totally agreeing with you. We don't need to usually know why the player needs this or do any other like huge thoughts about this situation. But what we need to know is the context. So first thing, there is no general rule that applies to every single situation you will be facing at an event, because events are different, the people in the events are different, the venues will be different, the judges will be different. So what you need to start in order to properly do an investigation is know the context. So understand exactly what is happening. The second thing you need to know are the causes. So why is this happening? What happened in previously that put the players in the situation where they are asking me for something. And the third point that you need to deep dive are the effects of your decision. So they are asking me for something. What will happen if I give them this answer, or what will happen if I give them this other answer? And these are the three things that, in my opinion, make for an investigation. So in every time you will be running an investigation, you will need to think about the context first. So that means the present. This seems like the most easy part of any investigation. So understanding the present, what is for me happening at this time, okay? And I agree with you, this is easy because all the informations are there. It's just you that need to collect them. At the same time, in my experience from events where I was called to a situation where, because the floor judge told me, oh, I have an investigation for you, Matteo. This is like the 99% of the times where everything failed. Because since it's so simple, the judge didn't pay enough attention to what was actually happening. So they didn't have the full picture of the situation. And in this situation, you cannot understand what you will do. Unless you perfectly understand the present, you cannot make a decision for the future. So your first question, we started with what kind of question should I ask? Your first question needs to be about the present, the context, what is happening now. The second part is about the causes, as we said, so the past. So how did we reach this point? But first, you need to understand what the point is, okay? And then you will need to go back in time. And this is usually more difficult because the causes may be simple and maybe happened like right away, or there may have been like a large amount of time between the causes and the situation where you are at the table or you are with the player asking your question. So this is usually more difficult because the information you need to get is not available at that moment. You need to collect details, you need to collect statements, and you need to compare probably different versions. Usually in the context, there are no different versions because the things are there, you can see them. You know where they are, you know where you are, okay? You just need to be aware of all the things. The past, unless you were there when things happened in the past, you cannot be 100% sure. So you need to think a lot about what you need to know, and you need to, most of the times, to compare different versions from the players. And the last thing you need to mostly ask questions to yourself is about the impact of your decision, okay? The impact of the information you will provide. And because this will be a key on delivering your message, your decision, or the results of your investigation. Okay. I'm talking a lot. I'm reading also the chat. If you want to share any thoughts, feel free, and I will jump in. So these are, for me, the order for your questions whenever you want to investigate. So first, you focus on the context. You need to be aware of what is happening now, what is the present situation. Then you need to find out how players reach that point for asking you that question. And finally, you need to ask yourself what will be the impact, the effects of your decision. So you will be thinking about the future. And please try to follow this way of questioning because I found it to be the most effective and to be very helpful in reaching your decision in an efficient way. So what is an investigation? Oh, yes, we have a couple of bullet points that we need to share first. So this is a very good chat, Matteo, but I don't have the time to go through all these steps because players need an answer very fast. Yes, I agree. So we are running events that are timed events. So whenever we are taking calls from players, we are pausing their matches, and this may have an effect on the event. So yes, I agree. The show must go on. We need to run our investigation because maybe it's important, but we need to be aware that there may be lots of people waiting for us. So having this pattern may help you in speeding up the process as well. And at the same time, there is this second bullet point that is very, 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 very important, connected to the first one, because how do humans usually save time in making decision? Is like applying previous knowledge to the current situation. So I've been everybody already asked me where is the toilet. I just need to point out the direction of the toilet, and I will not be wasting time. Yes, most of the time this will be helpful to players receiving the information in a very quick and precise way. But sometimes you will not be answering the real question. So my suggestion is to be very careful in applying the usual way of doing things to such a situation, but because you may be missing something. And usually bias is the killer of the context. So you find a few things that you recognize and you start to apply your usual way of dealing with them, and you miss all the others. And that's why usually I say that the critical part is the context, because that's where we find shortcut, because we want to be efficient and we know how to handle most of the things. okay? And that's why I tell you, always think first to the context. So understand exactly what's happening at this time in this situation so that you can provide the best service to the players, okay? So we have context, we have causes, we have effects, and we need to be aware of both time and bias, and we need to combine them in a way where we are satisfied by our decision. So yes, a lot of words, but what is an investigation? So this is something very important because for me, an investigation, first of all, is a mental effort because it's a way that we use to understand what is really happening, okay? So whenever we find something that we don't have an easy answer to, or something that hits our mind as unusual or strange, or maybe difficult, we need to put our brain to work. We need to do some effort to think about the situation and start running the questions as we did before. So understand the context, understand the causes, and understand the effects. At the same time, an investigation is mostly customer care. For me, an investigation is the effort of the judge to provide the best possible service to the players. So players have questions, they have requests. We need to understand what they really want, and we need to provide them with it. So it's our heart. A good investigation comes from your brain, but also from your heart, because you want to provide a good service. So you want to delve deep. At the same time, an investigation, most of the judges tell me it's about cheating, it's about removing the bad people from the event. Yes and no, because we are not sheriffs. I mean, we are not police. And 99% of the situations where you will be investigating will not be leading you to a cheater, to some bad person. Most of the times they will be honest mistakes, or they will be honest requests, or just difficult questions. But you need to treat them in the same way. So spend your mental energy, put your heart, and provide the best customer service possible to the players. And this applies to our first situation that we just discussed about of judge, where is the toilet? I mean, we want to provide them the best possible solution to give them the best possible customer care. So we want to understand what they really want. And for that, we needed the context. Of course, if I tell you this question just in general, you will be providing me with a different answer. But that's because you didn't know the context, and we need to investigate. So let's go with a second situation at this point. Maybe we had also a whole bunch of no's if we should investigate this situation. I was cheating, and for example, I didn't provide you with the context. A few judges in the chat were starting to ask for the context. So I will give you the context, and let's see if we think we need to delve deep into this situation. So this was also from GP Lyon, not 2020, that was my last GP, but it was GP Lyon in France, 2015. And that was my first GP as a head judge. So I actually remember a lot of stories from that GP. And at the time, there was no companion, there was no event link. So we were running like the paper teams with result slips. And it was round one. And one of the players came to a judge telling them, may I give you the result? Okay. So we are at the GP. We had almost 1,900 players. So it was very big. It was about the end of round one, so well into the round. And you received this question from a player. So do you need any information about the context? I'm reading you in the chat. I already provided you what you know, because if you are judging at the event, you know what round it is, how many players, the time in the round. And do you think that in order to provide the best customer service to this player, you need more information about the context or not? I don't see questions, so I'm going far away. I'm providing you some more context. So the player came to you, I told you, with this question. So the player was not at the table. And this is how much time is left in the round. Yes, it was about 10 minutes left in the round. So we are almost at the end of the round. The player was not at the table, but came to you in the middle of the room, asking you this question. For purpose of customer service, maybe you can ask, verify what the result is. Yes, but this is not about the context. This is, I would say, something later. Are they bringing you the result slip or trying to give you the result perfect? Which event it is, main event or side event? Okay, it was main event. Correctly, this is for me a key question. Good job, Enoch. And also Matthew. This is a perfect question. It was for main event, and the player didn't have a slip in their hand. So you have this player coming to you, 10 minutes left in the round one. You are in the middle of a room. The player was not at the table. They were playing the main event. They don't have a result slip in their hand. So I think this gives us the full picture. So let's see if we can have some questions about the causes. So we should ask, okay, why does this player come to me to provide me with the result? If this is not like the standard procedure, they should have a result slip and they should be entering the result into the slip. I mean, it's quite a simple procedures that all players are used to do. So we did ask the player, okay, can you give me the result slip? And they told us, oh, no, we didn't receive any result slip. And this is unusual. I mean, it may happen still. Maybe, I don't know, something happened with the judge bringing the slips into that area of the floor. So it's not the player's fault. Why would Luca lose to Calle? Because Calle is a good player and Luca not so much. And so, I mean, this is plausible. It may happen that players didn't receive the slip. So what we do, we want to provide a good customer service. Okay, just give me the result. And they tell us, it's evidently it's Calle and says, I win 2-0. Okay. At this point, perfect. Thank you very much. I will give your result to the scorekeeper. Enjoy your next round. Okay. So we got a good answer to the causes that we were looking for. We need to think about the facts. Okay. So if I accept this result, the player who came to me will be happy. But I mean, there is also another player. Maybe I should verify the result. Because, I mean, if this player is wrong, or I don't know, wanted to drop, as Kwok Xiang Neo told us, that's a very good point. I should verify and drop them from the event. So the floor judge went to the scorekeeper saying, oh, I have the result for player Matteo, and he tells me that he won 2-0. And the scorekeeper looks at the computer and tells the judge, well, I already have the result, and it's the other way around. So Matteo lost 2-0. And at this point, okay, we see that the simple question, can I give you the result, has an implication on the event. So what kind of questions at this point we need to ask? The context at this point is changed because first we had a player coming to you asking a simple question. At this point, we have a situation where one player provided the result verbally to a judge, and the other player, we checked, there was a result slip that was giving the win to the other player. So player one won instead of player two. So the context radically changed. And we need to perfectly understand the new context. Any information that we may need about the new context. So having the scorekeeper with one result and the player coming to you with a different result. Can I verify your DCI number? Yeah, at the point we may be doing that. But DCI number for which player? Both of them or just one of them? I mean, this is before talking to the players, we need to fully understand the context. There may be additional information with the context that we can get before like calling the players or talking to them. Because as I told you, the scorekeeper entered a different result, so we can check with the result slip. So did the scorekeeper receive a result slip? Yes, they did. So they brought it out. And what can we check on the result slip? We can check for the result, but we can check also for more information, more context. Let's see if we get some ideas from the chat. Warnings. Yes, this is a very good point. On the enter slip, we can read the result, but we can also check for other information. For example, were any penalties entered into this match? Yes, this is some context that we can get from the slip. We can also check, I don't know, something like, did the player sign for the result? And this may be relevant. So we did check the slip, and the player who entered the match win for themselves on the enter slip signed the slip, and on the other player there was just an X. There was no like a full signature. At the same time, there was like in the slip that you see on the screen, there was a warning entered for the player that apparently lost the match on the enter slip, and that was the player who came to you saying that they won instead. And there was also a large time extension. So we get more context, because if we flip the enter slip, there should be something written by the judge assessing the penalty and assigning the extra time, and there was. So at this point, we have a full context. So we have an enter slip that was signed by the player winning the match and not the player losing the match. We have information about a penalty, and we have an information about a judge assessing a penalty at the match. So maybe we are lucky. Maybe we can get a third version of what happened, and we can check also with judge. And that's what we did. We called both players, we kept them apart and asked them things about the past, the causes. That is things like, okay, what deck do you play? Do you play control? Do you play aggro? Do you have the life pad? Can I check the life points for the games? These are the typical questions to understand the causes. In this situation is we want to see who won. So how did the players win? Because both players were saying, I won 2-0. Okay. And we did that. And one player provided us with a lot of information that made sense. The other player was like, I don't remember. And finally, we also talked to the judge, who we were very lucky because we asked him a question about the past, so the causes, and say, okay, what happened at the table when you came and assessed this warning? So the judge explained that there was this situation that was a little bit complicated because the players were a little bit fighting with each other. They didn't agree on many things. And they gave the ruling that was almost the end of game 2. And luckily, the judge stayed at the table until the match was over. So we had like a good observer that were able to provide us with an impartial thought. And guess what? This simple question, may I give you the result? Ended the GP for one player after round 1. And I honestly never understood why this player who lost the match went to a judge claiming that he won it instead. So the player never shared their intention at this point. But yes, we went through a double round of context, cause, and effect. So first we analyzed the question from the player. So we tried to find out if they had a sleep, and then they didn't. So we went to analyze the causes why they did not have a sleep, why they came to us to provide the result. We thought about the facts. If I accept this result, maybe I'm losing one player. I don't know. So let's check with the scorekeeper. And this was important to check. And the scorekeeper provided us with a completely different context. So we recovered all the information about the present. That meant the additional information from the entered sleep that we had. And then we asked questions to the players and the judges about the causes. And we took our decision about the effect. Okay. Any questions? Please feel free to share. Okay, let's move in time. We go to move in time. Joke, inside joke. We moved to a situation that was one of the most interesting I've been involved into. That is, judge, we have additional time. So I'm going to provide. We know, so this is about time, and we know that. First thing, if you want to do an investigation, we need to understand the context. So I stop cheating on you and I provide you at least where is this coming from, the story I want to share with you. This was GP Los Angeles, 2018. And I remember that GP because it was at the end of one of the most amazing adventures I had, because I was at a pro tour in Minneapolis 2 weeks before this GP in Los Angeles, and a friend joined me, and we rented a car, and we drove all the way through America, through the Route 66, all the way from the north to California, and it was one of the most amazing trips I ever took, and one of the best ways, in my opinion, to understand the country is to travel through it, like with a car, and meet people and go to the places that are not like the most touristic places, and you will learn a lot about the culture. So I was there. I was very excited. I had a beautiful vacation time before, and it was day 2, main event. It was around 13, so it was like almost close to the end of the day 2. Because at the time we had the 15 rounds before the top 8. So this was around 13, only 2 more to go. And the player requesting this to a judges. So this request happened at the table, and the judge were distributing the enter slips. That is the piece of paper that we just saw before and we discussed before. So you know that at GPs there are judges cutting the slips, and then they are sent into the floor to be distributed by other judges who just go to the tables they have the slips for and just usually put them on the table. At this table, one of the players stopped the judge and said, "Judge, we have additional time." Okay, so this is the context. Do you think we need more information about the context? Let me see. Okay, I opened the chat, so I'm able to read you. So you ready? Okay. I told you the judge was distributing the slips. Usually this happens in the first 10 minutes of the round. So this time we are not at the end of the round. We are at the beginning of the round, likely 5 minutes after the beginning. Some context that we may be needing is, of course, for example, what table is it? We were at one of the top tables, so it was not like players who lost a lot of matches today, but players who won most of them, and they may have been in contention for top 8. Something that we may want to know about the context is, okay, they're asking me for additional time. How much additional time do you need? This may be like, irrelevant information. And I say, how much time do you need before what happened? Because we are still trying to understand the situation. what happens so that you have additional time, as Enoch tell us, is a good question, but it is about the causes. So what happened in the past that brought us to this present situation. So before we go there and we make hypotheses or solution, we need to understand the current situation. And for me, more important is how much time do you need? Maybe it's they tell me like 1 minute, and you say, okay, that's fine. Okay, I don't need like to deep delve into this situation. I can give you 1 minute. And when the judge asked this question, the player said 7 minutes and a half, so 7.5 minutes. And this is like an unusual amount of time, let's say, because usually judges, when they give additional time, they don't give like 30 seconds more. I mean, they give like 7 minutes or 8 minutes, not 7.5 minutes. So the judge took a look at the table. That is more context. More context, they saw they were playing both control decks. So probably decks that need a lot of time to win a mirror match. And this point, okay, the context is curious. So yes, I agree that we may be wanting to go deep and see what happened in the past that brought us into this question. And when the judge asked the players, okay, why do you have extra time? Why do you have this amount of extra time? The player said, oh, because the player who called for the judge and told this request said that the scorekeeper entered the wrong result the previous round. So I went to the judge stage and I told that I had the incorrect amount of points. So they fixed my results. It took a little bit of time. And when I arrived at the table, the judge told me that we have 7.5 minutes of additional time. Okay, this is the cause from one of the player. You can ask the second player, and I usually suggest you to do so. And if you do so, it's better if you ask the second player away from the table so that they can speak freely without pressure from the other player. And the other player said, oh, yes, this is my opponent arrived late. I don't remember how much time. I was like shuffling and I was like concentrating on my match and I didn't pay attention. This information we received from the player provides us with some of the causes and provides us with some additional information we can verify because there are multiple people involved at this point. They said that they went to the judge stage and talked to the scorekeeper. We can verify that. They said that a judge was at the table and the judge told them, you have this amount of additional time, and we can verify that as well, or at least try to do that. So we did that. And we went to the scorekeeper. The scorekeeper remembered that there was a wrong result, so everything matched. The scorekeeper also remembered which judge was involved with the player to bring them to the table and assist them. So we went to the judge and checked with them. So we are still in the causes. So what happened in the past? And this was like a very, very, very amazing answer I got from the judge. Because the judge told me, yes, I remember. So how much time did you give the players? And the judge said, 5 minutes. I say, 5 minutes? Because the player told us a different amount of time. And he just said, oh, yeah. One of the player who was at the table late said, oh, it's more than 5 minutes. We need 10 minutes. And I told them, no, 10 minutes. You see on the clock, I mean, it took us much shorter than that. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. And the player kept like saying, no, 10. But at the end, they started shuffling and started playing. So at that point, I was like, so the judge assigned 5 minutes. The player said, I want 10. When the judge with the slip arrived at the table, they said 7.5. And 7.5 is actually like in the middle between 5 and 10. So probably that they wanted like to be like King Solomon and split the problem in two and assign them 7.5. So what do we think about? Okay, we have the full picture. We had like reliable witnesses with that provided us with plenty of information. We found a possible solution for the questions: why did they have 7.5? Because it's in the middle from 5 to 10. And what are the effects of this situation? So why should a player want 10 minutes when they had 5, or wanted some more extra time? Well, we had context that player was playing a control match, a control deck. So probably they wanted as much time as possible in order to make sure they could win before the end of the turn. And probably at that point, they were playing at the top table. If they draw the match, probably it would be the same as a loss. So even those 5 minutes, or even the 2.5 minutes, could make a difference in the perspective of the player to be able to win the match. Unfortunately, they did not win the match because they stopped playing at that point, because they were providing us with false information, and they were not what we want from players. So that was the end for the tournament for that player. Situation number 4. And this was like everybody was saying that we need to investigate, and I agree. How much time do we have left? Let me check. Okay, we still have time. Perfect. And this is like the classical situation, because the player is, so this was GP Torino in Italy. I have an Italian example for you. And it was 2018, and it was a limited event. So player, this was day 1. So they had a sealed deck. So they received a bunch of boosters and they built their deck. And the situation where I miss a card is common at limited events usually, because there are like cards like the one that you are seeing on the screen, like pacifism, that tend to end up in your opponent's deck more often than you would wish. So when the player called for a judge saying that they couldn't find a card in their deck, I can provide you, this is bonus situation because it was very interesting, some context. This was around 4, so it was halfway through the day, beginning of it. The player called you at the beginning of the round, and they called you because they counted the cards in the deck, like pile shuffling, like a very good player to verify the content of decks, and they find out they had 39. So they called you. Any questions that you would like to ask in order to better understand the context of this situation? There are like a lot of questions we could ask, actually. I may be aware that I may be providing you some bias by showing a picture of a card, but yes, one of the first questions you should ask: do you know which card you are missing? This can help. Did you just notice this now or earlier? Perfect. They tell you, yes, I was just pile shuffling, and I always do pile shuffling at the beginning of every single match. So yes, they didn't notice, and the question is perfect because at GPs, this was actually a feature match for that round. So the players were 3-0. At the time at GPs, there were buys. So maybe one of the players, the player who called you, may have been 3 buys, but no, they did play the previous round. This is more about the causes, but let's put them into context. So it was a player who was 3-0. The player played the previous round. The player always pile shuffles, and this is the first time they noticed they had 39 cards. So we can verify which card it is that is missing, because of course we have deck lists. So we can do a back check and find what is the missing card. But the player was sure that the card was a pacifism. It was not this one with this picture, because this is from later, but it was from a previous set. So at this point we have a clear context. a player is missing a card. We know which card it is. We know that they are sure that the previous match the deck was legal and they had 40 cards. So we can go to the causes. Okay, the causes. Okay, how can this be happened? It's a pacifism. It's very likely that the card, where is it? We did check, is it under your playmat? Is it under your chair? Is it under the tablecloth? Sometimes cards tend to move very fast in places you would not expect, but it was not around. So it's very likely that the card would be with the previous round opponent, okay? So how do we know, how do we get there? We go to the scorekeeper, we ask where is this player's previous opponent playing now? We go to the table, and very funny things happen at that table. So what we would expect at that point is to find one of the players at that table, that is the opponent from the previous round, having an additional card in the deck. And this is usually very easy to notice. Why? Because even at limited, players usually play with sleeves. And something that we noticed is that the player who called us that was missing the card was playing red sleeves. And when we get to the table, nobody's playing red sleeves. So it's going to be very easy to find the missing card, because both players were playing dark sleeve. One was blue and one was black. The previous round opponent had blue sleeves. So we went to the player. They were playing already because it took us some time to go there. And they were like in round in turn number 3 of the match. So we picked the deck, said, oh, don't worry, continue playing. I picked the deck and I checked for the missing card. It would be very easy to find out, but there was no red sleeved card in the deck. So I quickly counted the cards in the deck, the cards in the hand, the cards on the battlefield. And they were 41. So it is legal, but it's unusual. And what happened to the card? So I checked, there is a new context. And so we are trying to find this missing card at this table. So I did take a look to the table, what the players were playing. And the player who was the previous round opponent was playing white lands. So there were planes. And in their hand, there were also white cards. So I said, that's weird. Okay, let's check. So we removed the player from the table. I asked him, okay, do you play pacifism in your deck? And they said, no, I don't. I didn't open any. And we did verify with the deck list, and he didn't open any pacifism. So the player was not honest. And then I asked him, okay, can I see the cards in your hand? And in their hand, they had a pacifism. So the pacifism was not in the deck, but was in the hand. Okay. And this is like, was round 3. The player was the active player. We were almost 15 minutes into the round at that point, because we took a little bit of time of verifying things. And our new context is this player, yes, Joel. This player told us that they didn't have a pacifism in their pool, but the card was in their hand. Okay. So any further question we can think about the context? I honestly, I don't know if you have questions that you can share, but I honestly don't think we can get more information about the context. I mean, first context was a player missing a card. We verified the area. We determined the possible cause of being the card in the previous round opponent deck. We went to the new context, so the new match that this player is playing. We verified if they had a red sleeved card in the deck. They didn't. We asked them if they are playing a pacifism. They said, I don't. and we found the card in a different sleeve, because it was a black sleeve, in their hand. Okay. There is one additional information I want to share, but I will, this is like cheating, I will share this information with you at the end. So at this point, we start thinking about the causes of this context. And that means, so how did this card that the player said it's not in their pool ended up in their hand in a different sleeve? This is like funny. I mean, usually this doesn't happen at all. So what we did is asking the player, okay, did you by any chance change the sleeves of your deck this round? And they told us yes. I did change the sleeves because while I was shuffling, I broke one of them and I didn't have any extra ones. And this is like very, very, very strange because, okay, so you did change all the sleeves, and did you notice, did all the sleeves have the same color? And they said yes. We asked, like, can I see the old sleeves? Do you still have them with you? Since this happened while you were at the table. And they said yes, and they gave us the sleeves, the old sleeves, and they were of blue. The new sleeves were black. The previous round opponent missing card was supposed to be in a red sleeve, so all colors were different. And the blue sleeves, so the ones that got broken and replaced this round, I counted them, and they were 40. So not 41. Now they had 41 black sleeves. And the player told us, no, it's impossible. These are my cards. And I asked them, okay, you told me you didn't have any pacifism in your pool. So why one pacifism is in your hand? And they didn't have any answer for that. So at the end, there was one additional context thing that you should be aware if you judge at an Italian GP limited. And that is that players may ask to have product either in English or in Italian. So the pacifism was in Italian, and all the other cards in the pool of a player were in English. And the player missing the pacifism had all Italian cards. So clearly, it was very, very likely that what happened. The pacifism got into the other player's deck. The player noticed at some point when he was there, or maybe when he broke the sleeves, and he decided that pacifism could be a very good card in their deck as well. And so they just changed the sleeve and added the card into their deck. So also in this situation, we have the effects we had to think about. So the situation number one, the player calling us because they are missing a card. What is the effect of our decision? I mean, we need to prevent two possible illegal decks, because there was one deck with 39 cards and one possible deck with 41. So our decision, the effect of our decision would be trying to prevent, if possible, 2 game losses in case the error is an honest mistake. In the second situation, instead, where we went to the new table, there was a different context. So one card popping up into a player's hand that was not supposed to be there, in a different sleeve, in a different language. And the effect of this situation, our decision would be very different. It was not be more like a possible game loss. It was more like a player eventually trying to abuse the system and playing cards they were not supposed to be playing. And that's what the final result was. So also this player didn't finish the event, unluckily. And that's it for my situations. So we went through 4 common and simple situations. I changed them in probably more difficult and complex one. Why? Because there was some specific context. You may say I was cheating you because I didn't provide you all the information at the beginning to make so that you could make a good answer to my simple question we need to investigate. But I would say I was not cheating. This is what happens at tournaments. Players never come you with a full context. You need to assess it. You need to make a question. You need to use eventually your previous experience to make shortcuts to be fast and efficient. We always say time is important, but sometimes do not overdo these shortcuts because they may become biased and you may not provide a good service to the players. As we said, in investigation is usually a mental effort to provide the best customer service possible to the players. So we really want to provide them with the best answer possible. And in most situations, making sure that the context is clear will help you tremendously in finding the best solution to the problems that players bring up to you. And sometimes you will be building up stories you can share with judges. And I really hope that we can meet sometime in the future at maybe at a bonfire, sharing stories from events, sharing our experiences. And that's it for me for today. I really want to thank Felix for allowing me to be talking with you today. It's been a real pleasure, even only to read the names of people that I care about in the chat, or to read new names that from judges I never met before. I really hope that the situation in the future will allow us to meet in real life as well. And for sure, I will be the first one to ask you for stories to share about investigation you may have performed at events, or funny stories from events that you judged too. So thank you very much.